This is the HOM Furniture Lakeville location. This is the place where I had my first experience installing the 75F product. Right here is where we've got our wire going from the CCU coming back up to the unit to control it. And then over here is where we've got our power exhaust isolation relay, because the contactors for the powered exhaust run on 120 volt coils. We have, so we're running our 120 volts through the relay, but using the 24 volt contacts through the smart node to control it. Yep. With this model, there was a bunch of open space right here. I mean, you can see some of the wires are running back this way to the different sensors, and then they run forward to the other, to that relay there for the power exhaust. And this is where, all these wires is where it took us a lot of time when we first started, because we'd run one wire and make sure that we put it onto the right connection, because we're learning it. As time went on, I'd be at this end with, 3 sensors or 3 wires in hand, and I just label it and then push all 3 of them through the little wire chase at the same time. On this one, this is where we really put a lot of effort in, and we have the CO2 sensors are mounted further down into the ductwork. So then you can see we've got the wires that ran up to here. We've also got the supply air sensor in the supply air duct down in the space running over, and then they come up to here. And then we've got our mixed air sensor, and that's where, knowing how it goes, you can just run all 3 of them at the same time. Where we got bogged down kind of learning what we were doing is just running the one wire up. I didn't become an expert after the first one. It just, as the repetition built up, then it was like, okay, so this is how I can go there, because I've got another unit I can show you where I'd have all 3 of my wires bundled and zip tied together, and then I'd crawl into the unit once and feed it through. Some of the project included putting a new economizer actuator on, because there were a number of economizer motors that were bad, so they weren't getting the opportunity to get free cooling. So yeah, there was no monitoring. So the only way they would know that the economizer wasn't working was if they had somebody come up and test it. And they have a lot of locations, and not enough guys dedicated to maintenance of it. So that's the old motor there. So that one we just abandoned, so it's not connected to the system at all. And then we put this new, this one just happens to be a Belimo brand, mounted on the shaft to move the dampers. And then we've got these 3 white wires. One of them's just the 3 wire, it's a 3 wire conductor connected to our actuator, and then there's another 3 wire that's connected to the carbon dioxide sensor, and then a 2 wire for the supply air sensor. And then I've got the mixed air sensor in there, and then there's an outdoor air sensor. So I've got 5 wires that are, from this point, that are all running back towards the smart node. And that's where, when you know exactly what sensors go on what end, and that they all need to connect, all right, now I can start grouping these together, and then crawl into this space once, feed it over, crawl into the next space, and just keep running, instead of feeding one wire, getting it all the way in, and then crawling back in here to feed the next one. That's where I really learned how to save time, was just going, okay, I've got this many sensors, making sure that I'm running all the wires at the same time. This location had thermostats. All the thermostats were located in the manager's office, with space sensors staggered throughout the showroom. So we mounted the CCUs in the manager's office, and then we ran power out on the wire that was connected to the sensor to power our smart node, and then just replaced the old space sensor with a new 75F space sensor there. With a lot of these retrofits, we reuse as much existing wire that we can, because most of the time there's a wire running from the unit down to the thermostat, so we can just use that for the CCU. And if we're mounting that CCU directly in the space, then the space sensor gets mounted right below it, so that's easy. When the old thermostats are all centrally located in the manager's office, that's where it gets a little tougher, trying to figure out how we're going to get power to our smart node to get that remote space temperature sensor in. This one we changed out, so we did the big 75F install summer of last year, and this was a middle of the winter change out. So the system was already online. It was showing, all the different units and some of the issues that they had. And then this one was identified as a candidate for replacement because it had heating problems and cooling problems. For basic economizer control, you can go with just about any brand. You just need a little controller going to the actuator to open the blades. But the 75F system has all the extra sensors so that you get the feedback that, now if one of these units doesn't kick on in the cooling or the heating properly, all right, we know right away, as opposed to this one quit working and that one quit working and this one quit working. And now because the salespeople are calling and saying, hey, this part of the store seems to be cold. And we come up here and go, okay, well, you've got a problem here, you've got a problem here, you've got a problem here. It's gonna take, so many days to get parts, and that's downtime and lost productivity down there in the store. So now with all the extra sensors, they can see when there's a problem before people are noticing down in the space.